But what we see again over here is we see a dry up of the volume, right? So we see the volume over here being very, very large. So we see a large volume that corresponds to a large amount of buyers. So we use the delta and the volume to kind of they come together, they're compatible when it comes to taking trades. When we see high volume that corresponds to aggressive buyers, but the market fails to move up, what does that tell you? Well, that tells you that buyers are definitely failing. So we want to be taking shorts, right? If buyers are failing, we want to be taking sells, right? So something I discussed earlier on in the video was that there's never more buyers than sellers, right? You can have either aggressive or passive participants, right? And this is the beauty where we can really read who's passive, because if we have a lot of aggressive buyers over here, so in this case we had a lot of aggressive buyers, but the market failed to move up, right? So what this means is that there's passive sellers that are sitting at this level, and this is the secret behind every fair value gap. The secret behind every fair value gap is you want to look for more passive participants than aggressive participants. So we have more aggressive buyers than sellers, right? But the market failed to move up. So what that means is that there's more passive sellers than there are aggressive buyers, right? So when there's more passive sellers than there are aggressive buyers, this is what drives price lower, and vice versa. If there's more passive buyers than aggressive sellers, this will drive price higher, right? So in the next video I'm going to be going over a long example, right? This is a short example, but really I want traders to understand my overall thesis when it comes to using the ATAS platform. So once again, I'm going to go over the settings, right? So the bid and the ask, because the market is an auction, right? Every auction has a bid and the ask. The market is no different. We use the delta to determine who is aggressive and who is passive, how many aggressive buyers and how many aggressive sellers there are. So if we can determine how many aggressive buyers and sellers there are, when we see aggressors that are failing to drive price higher, in this case, drive price higher, we know that there's more passive sellers than there are aggressive buyers. And this is what truly gives us the edge in determining whether a fair value gap is going to hold, right? Not a body, not a wick, not time, not an OTE model, not an ICT model. None of these things can give you the precision and accuracy and the true meaning behind every market the way that order flow does, right? So order flow gives you essentially the why behind every fair value gap, or the why behind every liquidity sweep. And we're also using an additional footprint chart volume, right? The volume profile. The volume profile is the second row, which essentially tells you the bid plus the ask. And it tells you where most of the market transactions are happening, right? So in this case, what's really interesting, if we read the next candle as price kind of broke below this level, what we're looking for, again, we're seeing that most of the volume is situated in the lower half of the candle. So when we see a dry up of volume, that means that there's less market participants, less aggressive buyers and sellers that are hitting the bid and the ask respectively. And so what that means is that there's less interest between buyers and sellers, right? When the volume decreases, it means that less market participants, buyers and sellers, are interested in those prices, right? So this was at 60.78 and we see the volume increasing at 60.74. So the market is interested in lower prices, and we can only read that when we see the dry up in volume, and the dry up in volume is again part of order flow. So this is how I was able to kind of frame a short bias for the session. So again, if we go to the Discord, we had a kind of a short bias for the session. And the way I was able to do that was really just by reading the order flow, right? So again, we had